Hey, welcome back to part 2 of the World War II Rosie the Riveter lecture. Haha! Now the fun begins, and you're going to have to participate eventually, so brace yourselves. Well, you know, eventually. Right, next slide. So, remember I've told you a couple of times, but I'm never just going to give you a lecture just for the fun of it, these lectures all have to mean something to your contemporary life. Like the Great Depression lecture was about the importance of women in the Great Depression, yes, but it was also about the importance of governments in crisis. That when you have a big crisis like a Great Depression or a pandemic, individuals can't do anything about that. You need the government. So that was the big lesson for that one. This one, I'm doing some other stuff with it. We'll see. Let's just go see what it all means, shall we? Next slide. So first I wanted to show you this. This is Norman Rockwell's Rosie the Riveter poster, and it indeed predates the one that's more famous, the lady with a flexing arm that we started the lecture with. This is the first Rosie the Riveter poster, and Norman Rockwell, if you don't know him, just visualize for a second, if you would, Santa Claus. Got him in your head? With the red cheeks and the white beard and the smiling face? That image was brought to you by Norman Rockwell. He is an American illustrator. He did a lot of magazine covers and sort of postery things. And he's the guy who invented the image of Santa, because before that, Santa was a kind of a tall, menacing German dude. Germans are never fun. And I should know I'm half German. This is his Rosie the Riveter. And if you look at this poster, and it'd be helpful, don't enlarge this one because I had to make the resolution on all these smaller to make the slides show not so huge, the file size. But go to Google, find Norman Rockwell's Rosie, find one with a high resolution, and look at it while I talk if you want. So pause this, go do that, find the image, and then come back. All right, you back? Well, so what you have there, if you look at it, is a significantly more challenging Rosie. That is, while the original Rosie, the one that we started the lecture with, had one union button, this Rosie has half a dozen union buttons. She is, I think, an attractive lady. She's not typically or classically attractive. She's not particularly slim. She's fairly muscular. Her hair is not glossy and perfect. Her face is smudged with dirt. So this Rosie is a working woman, and she's clearly patriotic, but she's also not classically beautiful. If you have a better, really did go look at a better resolution of this picture, and I hope you did, then you'll see, if you go look up around her head, you see that? It looks kind of like a wrinkle in the flag, but it's not. It's what is it? What is a oval around a lady's head? Oh, you're right. It's a halo. And who has halos? You're right. Angels have halos. So who is this this dirty, begrimed working woman? She's an angel. What kind of angel? Look at the flag. She's an American angel. And if you think I'm reading too much into this, you're wrong. Norman Rockwell was very specific about what he was doing. He was an artist. And artists do things for a reason. And he was creating a certain kind of image for a reason. So we have an American angel, in spite of the fact that she's grubby and a little bit heavy set. She's an American angel who is a union member. We can tell she's patriotic both because of the flag and because her foot, and if you have a better resolution picture, you can see it, her foot is on Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. It was a book he wrote where essentially he laid out his repulsive ideas. And so she's got her foot on Hitler's book, she's got her halo around her head, and what is that in her lap? What is that? Well, it's two things. It's what it is really, and it's what it is symbolically. So what it is really, and if we were in class, I'd make you figure these things out for yourselves. We do it as a group, but we can't do that. So what it is really is a riveting gun. It's a compression fired riveting gun. But he has placed that shaped thing, Rockwell has placed that shaped thing in her lap for a reason. By doing that, what has he made it? What has he symbolically made that? Can you say it? Can you say it out loud? That's right. It is a metaphorical or symbolic penis. Oh, penis on a woman who's an angel? Peg, say it ain't so. That is, it's not that he's saying that this woman has the masculine appendage or that he wants the woman to have the masculine appendage, but rather that in having that riveting gun across her lap, he is lending her some of the power and authority that comes with the ownership of a penis, with masculinity. So what we have here is a significantly more challenging image than the more famous poster. She's more masculine in a way that makes 21st century audiences nervous. There's a symbolic penis in the picture. She's grubby. She's not as slim as American standards of beauty would say, etc., etc. Anyway, and here's my point about that. While that is, I think, a significantly more labor-friendly, union-friendly, and accepting of all sorts of kinds of women-friendly, and a significantly stronger image of feminine power, it is not the popular one, and indeed probably most of you have never seen this before. And it would suggest that as far as we imagine we have come in America with sex and gender relations, as far as we have come with women's history and women's rights, we are not nearly as far as we could be, and certainly, while this was the #1 Rosie image during World War II, people love this image. Now, we are not so sure. So, not only that we haven't come as far as we could have, but that maybe sometimes we are a little bit in retrograde, sliding backwards. Anyway, so we're going to look at some other sort of evidences that we may not have come as far as we would imagine. And to be fair, I think in the post-Trump election world, most of us don't believe anymore that we're very far. In Elizabeth Warren's failure in the primary, an immensely competent woman politician, and her failure in the face of two really old white men, Bernie and Biden. Oh God, Joe Biden. Anyway, we got a long way to go. But let's look at some other ways in which we can figure out we have a long way to go. Next slide. You've heard of this. Usually in class when I ask one or two people have heard of it and nobody else has, it's a very simple thing thought up by this woman named Alison Bechdel. Remember? She was on our list the first night. Look at that list. You notice, I'll bet you that before this class is over, we talk about everybody on that list. Anyway, Alison Bechdel, who's an American cartoonist, also came up with this test for movies. And the idea here is that you could apply this very simple set of questions to a movie to see whether or not it had good, solid portrayals of women. Now, this is not a way of deciding whether a movie is a good movie or a bad movie. If a movie fails this test, it doesn't make it a sexist movie or a bad movie, but it does make it a movie that does not have good, strong roles for women. So anyway, the 3 questions, they're not complicated. They're easy to remember, so you should be able to remember them even after this lecture. 1, does the movie have more than one woman? You would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be, by how many movies can't pass that. If it has more than one woman, question number 2, do the 2 women talk to each other? So are these 2 female characters who are ever in the same scene together and have dialogue together? And 3, if they talk to each other, do they talk to each other about anything but men? So you think about it, a lot of pop culture representation of women is women obsessing over men. Certainly all that Real Wives stuff, all that nonsense. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch any TV. That's based, I think, on premises that we spend our days thinking about and fighting over men, when it's not really true. If you think about what you do with your girlfriends, for the women listening to this, I spend very little time. Well, I don't know, maybe just me. Anyway, so we apply that to movies. Next slide. Of films that girls watch that fail the test. Oh, there's the list. I don't need to read through it. You've got it. Now, for example, The Deathly Hallows are a very good pair of movies. Very good. but they can't pass the Bechdel test because it's the do two female characters talk to each other about something besides men. I will say, in that second to last Harry Potter movie, the Hermione role is very strong. Indeed, I would argue that it's a Hermione movie. But she is really the only strong female character in the whole movie. I don't mean the whole book series, but in that second to last Harry book, the one where they're running from the Death Eaters and Hermione's got the tent and the bag full of stuff. The Star Wars movies are sort of classically and famously sexist. Doesn't make them bad, and it's okay if you like them, but let's not pretend they're anything but what they are. Oh God, don't even get me started on Twilight. It's not only sexist, it's sadomasochistic and anti-woman and a whole bunch of stuff. And if you love the books or the movies, fine, but be super clear about what those are. Lots of the Pixar films don't. Indeed, my favorite Pixar film, Bug's Life, doesn't pass the test. So many movies. Again, does this mean these are bad movies? No. And you probably love Lord of the Rings. Oh, good Lord. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they're bad movies. It just means they're not movies with good roles for women. And if you're thinking, what do I care? Hold on, phone's ringing. All right, I'm back. Sorry. But imagine a world where movies couldn't pass the same test for men. Imagine a world where our movies didn't have any strong male characters in them. Well, so there wouldn't be any, but you can't. Anyway, so we got that. We got a world in 2020 where a lot of the best-selling movies and our favorite movies can't pass a fairly simple, is this a good movie for women test. Next slide. Sarcasian. Anita Sarcasian was a young lady who was a gamer, and she was really interested in sexism in gaming. And the girl gamers in the room will admit that it is not a girl-friendly industry still today, though I think it's getting better. This is a part of the lecture that often the young male gamers find super challenging, and you're just going to have to suck it up. But Anita Sarcasian, what's really interesting about her, she wanted to study this, and so she put up a Kickstarter campaign just to raise money so that she could do the study and the video series about this. And just for putting up a Kickstarter campaign where she proposed to talk about sexism in video games, she was cyberbullied in the most shocking and graphic manner. Indeed, if you're at all interested in this, Anita Sarcasian does a really great TED Talk about the bullying campaign that took place online by male gamers just because she wanted to study and talk about sexism in video games. And it's horrifying. I don't want to talk about it a whole lot here because it's too horrifying. It says some really, really ugly things about male video gamers. Not all of you, but some of you. But anyway, when she did get, the great thing is there was a backlash against the cyberbullying. She got all of her funding and more. She got the thing done. And she put together this really brilliant video series about gender tropes in video games and misogyny, which is a fancy word for sexism in video games. And she came up with these 4 basic rules about the way in which women are in video games generally. Women are objectified, that is, turned into objects or things, and sexualized. Women exist to be rescued, that is, she calls it the damsel in distress trope. There's a really good video about the damsel in distress trope that I used to show in a different class, and you could probably find it if you want it. But this notion that women primarily exist in video games when they exist to either be sex objects or to be rescued by a heroic man. Women are rarely the protagonist, so protagonist is a fancy word for the hero. Women are rarely the hero, and that violence, both sexual and not, against women is ubiquitous in video games. Indeed, I would argue it's so ubiquitous we kind of don't even see it. Some of it's casual violence, some of it's obvious violence. I will tell you. I'm going to the next slide. Well, let's go there, and then I'll tell you. Next slide. All I did was I Googled violence against women in video games, and then I hit images in Google, and these are like the top pictures that came up. I didn't spend a lot of time being selective about looking for them. And you see some pretty graphic and repulsive images violence. That lower left-hand corner, that's just the damsel in distress trope. And the lower right-hand corner, remember I said the cyberbullying campaign against Anita Sarcasian? Somebody, a group of young men put up online a game where you could kick Anita Sarcasian to death for fun. And that is indeed a video game representation of Anita laying there on the ground in a puddle of blood being kicked by a young man, simply for proposing that we talk about this, like, not just the violence, but it's the sexualization. Like, I'm sorry, women don't look like that. And this is sort of a young male fantasy, and there undoubtedly men listening to this, or men that you know who spend some time drawing ladies like this with these like bizarrely massive breasts and little tiny waists and huge round asses, and I don't know. It's a cartoon vision of womanhood that's oppressive because it's so sexualized, it's so objectified, and it's so unreal. I'm not saying that sexy women are bad. I'm not saying that's not what I said. I'm saying this stuff's not real. I can't look at it anymore. I'm not going to argue with you about this. Ick. Gross. All right, next slide. A great book by Susan Douglas about representations of women in television. And Susan Douglas does pop culture studies, so she studies popular culture. And she has this great book about the ways in which women were represented on TV. And what she did is she did a big study of particularly reality TV she was interested in. And she watched hours and hours of it. She's got the great chapter about like how horrifying and depressing that was. And then she came up with these rules, things she learned that, like, if you were a Martian and you dropped down on the Earth and all you knew about women is what you learned from watching reality TV shows, these are the rules for it. 1, women should be judged first and foremost by their appearance. 2, women need to compete over men, and indeed, that's pretty much what we do. Again, I'm not talking about reality, I'm talking about reality TV bullshit ideas sold to us. So this is a little bit like the true womanhood stuff, ideas sold to women about how people are. And this stuff about TV it's selling ideas to women and to men about how women should be. It doesn't mean it's how women are. So I'm not talking about reality. I would imagine most of us listening to this don't compete a lot over men. I certainly don't. Rule 3, women can't get along with each other. And on reality TV, women fighting with each other is a standard trope. Women are overly emotional and obsessed with relationships. I know when I read things like that, I feel overly emotional. Women should be sexy but not sexual. I'd argue that's not just a reality TV thing, that's a cultural thing. You're supposed to be sexy and attractive, an acceptable object to the male gaze, but you should not be sexual. Bad girls are sexual. Strong women are bitches. Oh, doesn't everybody know that? All women are materialistic and shallow. We just use people and get what we get. And that housework and child rearing are women's work. You rarely see somebody, a non-woman on TV, engaged in child rearing or housework. Well, that's depressing. And this is a book that was written less than 10 years ago. So messages we get about women from TV in a post-World War II Rosie to the Riveter world. Well, what's that mean? Let's look at the next slide. There is what we call in my business the Othello Effect, or which I prefer to call internalized oppression. The Othello Effect is from Shakespeare's play Othello. And in Shakespeare's play, Othello is he's a black general. So he's in Venice. So these people are white or Italian. They're Venetians, but it's written by an English playwright, and it's put on English. It was originally the play put on English stages by English actors, and then Othello was played in blackface, of course, yay. And Othello, well, an immensely in the play, an immensely competent general, and he marries this hot young wife who's white, and almost immediately this bad man named Iago convinces Othello that Desdemona, the hot young white wife, is cheating on him. And then the question always with the play is, why is it so easy for Iago to get Desdemona, this powerful, strong black man, to believe that his wife is cheating on him? And it's about the fact that Othello, like many of us, has internalized his oppression. That is, in the play, within his hearing and behind his back, a number of people say terrible things about Othello. And that Othello, probably having been a black man in a white society, had heard these things his whole life, and had begun to internalize that. Is, you hear enough bad things about yourself, there's a little part of you that will believe those things. The Othello effect, or internalized oppression. If you tell a kid it's ugly enough, they will begin to believe that they are ugly. If you live in a society that tells you that women are inferior, well, we could look to Rosie and to Wonder Woman to help save ourselves. Really? Rosie and Wonder Woman can save us from ourselves? How could she do that, Peg? Well, next slide, we're going to look at another cool pop culture thing. And Amy Cuddy did a really sort of a TED Talk that went viral about 5 years ago about body language. And essentially what she discovered in her studies is that we have long known that body language tells other people how we're feeling. That is, you can see that girl on the left, you can tell she feels insecure. The girl on the right looks like she feels secure. And indeed, the black and white picture, that's an attractive girl, and most of us would say a positive one. Turns out it's actually not, because while she's staring right at you, she's also got her arms and legs crossed, which are positions of weakness. But nonetheless, it turns out that not only does our body language, our posture, our facial expression, etc., not only does it shape how people sees us, it shapes who we are. It shapes how you see you. How does it do that, Peg? Next slide. This is what Ann Cuddy discovered. Cortisone. There's a bunch. You have a bunch of hormones in your body, and some days more than others, right? But there's two hormones that regulate how you feel about yourself. Cortisone is your stress hormone. So if you have high cortisone levels in your bloodstream, you're going to feel anxious. Testosterone is a dominance or confidence hormone. And you're thinking, well, testosterone's a dude hormone. Well, that's true, but women also have it. In dudes, it gives you body hair and, all the penis stuff, etc., etc. But also confidence. Women, we have enough testosterone to help us with the confidence and dominance stuff that all human beings need to not die in childhood, but not enough to make us all hairy and the other testosterone stuff. So these two hormones, if you're feeling stressed out, your body will flood your bloodstream with cortisone. If you're feeling confident, you'll get a little shot of testosterone into your bloodstream, and then those will both act like boosters. So you feel stressed out, your adrenal gland will flood your bloodstream with cortisone, and that'll make you feel more stressed out. If you're feeling strong and confident, you'll get a little kick of testosterone in your bloodstream, which will also make you feel more confident. So that's interesting. So, hold on, I'm going to pause for a second, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm recording these at my mother-in-law's house. I during the COVID thing, she doesn't, and she was sick. They thought she had COVID, but she didn't. But anyway, she needed a caretaker on the weekends, so I'm doing that because I've been home, because I'm a professor and I'm safe. Anyway, she's sleeping, and I keep getting up to check on her. Anyway, so go back to cortisone and testosterone. So it turns out one of the things Ann Cuddy found out is that not only does cortisone, you trigger your cortisone thing when you're stressed, and then it makes you feel more stressed, and et cetera, but that you can change you can control your cortisone and testosterone effects. That is, there are power poses you can do that will raise your testosterone and lower your cortisol. Really? So it turns out it's super, super easy. It turns out that you can do in 2 minutes of a power pose, 2 minutes of these so-called power poses, you can get your testosterone up and your cortisol down. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and I can't see you, but I want you to try and participate. So next slide. What we're going to do, if we were in class, we would all stand up and do this, and we'd all feel immensely ridiculous, but then we'd also we'd feel strong and powerful once it was over, and it would be this great classroom moment that we don't get to have. But wherever you are, just give this a shot. So there's 2 power poses, 2 classic power poses. There's the Rosie and there's the Wonder Woman. So if you're sitting down hunched over your computer, and that's bad body posture, just slumped like that in front of your computer will raise your stress hormone and your stress level. So, but stand up. Okay, you're gonna do it. Do it with me. Okay, I'm doing it too. So you put the computer down and stand up. I'll talk a little louder. Stand up. Okay, feet about shoulder length apart. Yeah. Girls up. Get your girls up. You get your shoulders back. Girls up. Chin up. Now get your arm up in the Rosie pose and flex. Ooh, I'm strong. Now it turns out if you do that, okay, keep your shoulders back, chin up, take some deep breaths. It turns out if you do that for 2 minutes, you can raise your testosterone, lower your cortisol, and in so doing, raise your self-confidence and lower your stress and anxiety. Oh, that's super handy to know in the middle of a pandemic. Then, okay, we didn't do that for 2 minutes, but now stop and switch your pose to the Wonder Woman pose, which is, I think, slightly less ridiculous because you're not standing there with your arm in the air like you're a 2-year-old showing off your muscles. But you put your hands on your hips. But keep your shoulders back. Got it? Keep your chin up. I'm strong. I'm powerful. I'm Wonder Woman. I'm about to fly off in my invisible plane. Feel it? Feel it? Make sure you're really steady there on your feet. You're on the balls of your feet. Your knees are slightly bent. Your feet are shoulder length apart. Your shoulders are back. Your girls are up. For the guys listening to this, you get your whatever's up, right? Not your girls so much. Deep breath. Feel it? Feel it? You actually kind of do, don't you? I know I do right now. Right? That's power pose. Rosie, Wonder Woman. And it turns out just doing that for 2 minutes can make you feel better about yourself. So your posture affects your blood chemistry, which affects your brain. That's cool. And that's how Rosie and Wonder Woman are going to save you in times of trouble and stress. Right? And if you feel ridiculous, you don't have to stop in the middle of the grocery store and power pose. I assume that you don't want to do that. But you can power pose in your bedroom. You can, before a job interview, you can go in the bathroom, close the stall and power pose for 2 minutes, and then go out and do your job interview. There's any number of places you could do it and not be ridiculous. You're welcome. Next slide. And this is true for all of you listening. Most of the people in this class are women, but not all of you. But all of you should go forth and be powerful and confident people. And one of the things we should do in our culture, and I don't care what gender you are, is we should redefine power as something for everyone, including girls and women. Don't you think? I think so. I think the word would be a more I think it would be a better place if we had a more equitable distribution of power. I don't mean I think women should be in charge. I think competent people should be in charge, right? Yeah, and they come in both genders. Anyway, that is the end of the World War II Rosie the Riveter lecture, part 2. You have then you need to send me your lecture notes that you just listened to here. You need to send me the reading response for this week, which has the Rosie the Riveter and some other stuff in it. And then you're going to watch a video about the women pilots, and you're going to make a list of some things you learned, and you're going to send that to me. So you can find the reading response and the prompt for watching the video both back there at Canvas at this week's module. And then you're going to send all that stuff to me, and I'm going to grade it, and you'll be able to see it on your grades in Canvas. Good? Okay, you guys, we're so close. If you got this far, you are 2 weeks away from being ready for the final exam. We have 2 more lectures to do. So you've come a long way all by yourself with only my online help. So congratulations. We're almost there. Keep it up. Okay. I miss you. Bye-bye.